I want to do two things. We are joined by John Bolton by phone. He was National Security Advisor to Donald Trump during the events that led to Trump's first impeachment. John Bolton, hello. I want to play some sound that you and I were talking about. This is Marco Rubio and others on Putin and Zelensky before today's Oval Office ambush.
Russia is governed today by a gangster. He's basically an organized crime figure who controls a government in a large territory. There's no other way to describe Vladimir Putin.
I think this entire invasion has been irrational. It's hard to understand what is actually being fed into Putin in terms of intelligence and reporting and how much of his own propaganda he believes.
What's at stake is repelling an authoritarian who basically is saying, I want the Soviet Union back, I want Ukraine back, I want Kiev back. And then what's at stake is making sure we don't allow it to become an Article 5 larger, broader war than that.
John Bolton, your thoughts on folks, some of whom I imagine you know pretty well, today turning on a stalwart American ally fighting a clearly defined and understood American adversary?
Yeah, this is really one of the most disgraceful performances that I've seen, and I think it's important to understand that, in particular, Trump and Vance own this personally. This is the kind of attack on a country that's defending itself from an unprovoked aggression, and they just unleashed on Zelensky in public. And whether they planned it or not, I don't know. I'm not that concerned with questions of etiquette. I am concerned that the president, vice president of the United States have sided with the aggressor, with, as Mike Waltz was just saying there, somebody who's trying to recreate the Russian Empire, something he's been very clear about since 2005 at least. And now you have, sadly, both Mike Waltz and Marco Rubio in the administration and apparently staying. I just say, remember, this is not the second month of Trump's tenure. This is the 50th month of his two-year term. And this is the point when somebody does 180 degrees from understanding American allies to backing America's adversaries that you resign.
Mark, are you saying Marco Rubio should resign?
And Mike Waltz. This is really the time to do it. If they don't get out now, I think their reputations will suffer for a long, long time. And that would be sad because their record in believing in a strong American national security policy has been very good up until now.
I mean, let me show you what Lindsey Graham had to say literally 12 days ago to Zelensky's face, and then I'll show you some of what he had to say today.
I want to tell you and your people, you're the ally I've been hoping for all my life. Not one American has died defending Ukraine. You've taken our weapons and you've kicked their ass. And I'm very proud to have you as our ally.
So, what did I think? Complete, utter disaster. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again. He either needs to resign and send somebody over that we can do business with, or he needs to change.
John Bolton, what do you think of Lindsey Graham right now?
It just, this is a line that the White House must have put out. Unfortunately, I see a lot of Republicans talking about it. But as I said a few seconds ago, this is not a question of etiquette. I could say that it was Trump and Vance that provoked it. It doesn't really matter what happened. This is, number one, not the kind of discussion you have in public. Trump could have cut it off at any point, which leads, I think, people to speculate maybe this is what he wanted. In World War II, neither Franklin Roosevelt nor Winston Churchill were terribly enamored of Charles de Gaulle for good and sufficient reason, but he was the leader of the Free French, and against the Nazi regime in Germany, he was our ally. In this case, it is Zelensky who is standing up for a country that only is asking for its independence and freedom to be preserved. Trump has said Zelensky is a dictator who provoked the war. It's an alternative universe. What you heard from Trump and Vance today was advancing the Russian position in these negotiations.
I want to see if John Brennan agrees with you. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess this might be an instance in which that is the case, John Brennan.
I've been agreeing with John Bolton regularly over the past several years because I think he saw up close and personal the damage and the danger that Donald Trump presents to our national security. It is clear from today's events that either Trump and Vance are ignorant of world history or are intentionally ignoring it. And their naivete when it comes to Russia and their amateurish attitude in terms of diplomacy, it really just worries me. And I think it worries John Bolton. It worries a lot of people who have worked over the years to try to keep this country strong, safe, and prosperous. But Donald Trump looks at the world through a very transactional, mercantilist prism. And I fear what he's doing is carving up the world into spheres of influence. And he's basically saying to Vladimir Putin, okay, you can have Ukraine, you can have the eastern part of Europe. And it does send a very chilling message to all of our allies and partners. And what message does it send to President Xi of China? We're not really going to care about the Taiwan. And, if we make a deal, he prides himself on being a deal maker, but he just throws to the side all of the many years of American values and principles that really have undergirded global stability and security. And Donald Trump in this meeting today, I think, demonstrates he's not interested in that. He is interested in only doing what it is that he believes as a real estate developer needs to get done. And it's atrocious, it's despicable, and things that Lindsey Graham says, spineless, unprincipled, and again, despicable.
Alex, you have a little bit of deja vu sitting here next to me.
First of all, I think that what I saw was maximum ignorance, maximum malice. I think some of the things that have been said by PM Turnbull, that this is about great powers and great powers carving up the world, the U.S. being the most important power in the system, but in the same breath marginalizing ourselves because we're cutting off one of the sources of our power, which is our alliances, both economic and security. And then ignorance on multiple different levels, ignorance on the facts, who started this war, and ignorance on how to solve problems for the United States, how to make the U.S. more secure. It is not by appeasing, it's not by serving Putin's interests, it's by supporting our allies, supporting Zelensky. What we could easily see is a Trump, if he was serving the U.S. interest and making wise decisions, is pushing Putin, who is teetering in certain ways, economically brittle, military taking massive losses, unsustainable for really much, much longer. They could weather another year or so, but putting maximum pressure. And, in this book, I took a look at a case study of 30 years of U.S. relationships with Russia and Ukraine. And it's shocking how many of these things are just being repeated over and over, succumbing to hopes and fears. Hopes that we could do more with Russia. That's what the Russians are dangling in front of Putin and Trump. Unsophisticated actors that can't seem to understand that, don't learn from the first 4 years, and fears what happens if the relationship devolves. And repeating the same mistakes in the poison Kool-Aid stage of mistakes, where we're really wrecking all our relationships. It is a little bit of deja vu. It reminds me of the days around that phone call where I went into where I organized the phone call and went into it with a sense of maybe hope, but a lot of foreboding that we would end up in a worst case scenario. That materialized today. I'm sure those folks sitting in the White House, the professionals, felt the same way about this meeting that looked like it was all but cinched up, but was blown up by J.D. Vance. And now everybody, the whole world has to deal with the consequences. I do feel it quite viscerally that we can't seem to learn from the mistakes of the past, focus on what really matters. It's really a sad day.